The Panthers had an opportunity to make it a game midway through the second period in Montreal, but an absolute gut punch in the middle of it. And you got to ask yourself, are the injuries too much for the Panthers to overcome?
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, January 9th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. And you can do that all on Game Time. So, Florida Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers, even in a losing effort against the Montreal Canadiens as they fall by a final of 6-2 at the Bell Center on Thursday night, and the Panthers falling down 2-0 right before the first intermission, had an opportunity to make it 2-2, where the Montreal Canadiens eventually created some separation later then after a drought of shots on goal for them. And then the third period came around as the Montreal Canadiens poured it on. It was still a 4-2 game when the Panthers pulled the extra attacker and an empty net goal, and then another insurance goal after that, wrapping up Alexandre Texier's hat-trick performance against the Panthers, and it's a 6-2 loss and 7 straight against the Habs. Today, we are going to discuss our takeaways of the game, our 3 duds, and a moment when we knew the game was lost, and then move on to the third game of the road trip in Ottawa. But the Panthers had a good amount of lineup tweaks in this one where Brad Marchand did not play. AJ Greer had to be upgraded to the second line, and it was just a whole bunch of line shuffles for the Panthers there, not just at even strength, but even on the power play, where you're seeing Evan Rodriguez back on power play 1, Gustav Forsling on power play 2, and even for the Panthers penalty kill, I mean, guys playing elevated minutes that you wouldn't see normally. I mean, Jesper Boqvist was playing an extra minute as from his season average of shorthanded time, which Jesper Boqvist had a good amount of time last year when he was playing with the Panthers, and as well as Luke Kunin averaged more than a minute than his usual time on ice for the Panthers there. I mean, it's just for the Panthers there. It's just little itty bitty errors that they continue to commit, and that the Montreal Canadiens were just the more opportunistic bunch. And it was just a game of just strange bounces all over the place. And it really started from the first goal. I mean, off a draw, they make it back to the blue line. And then AJ Greer, instead of getting his body on the puck, the shot from Noah Dobson goes off the stick and then right past Sergei Bobrovsky over the shoulder and then bar down. And I mean, the broadcast for the Panthers, Script Sports, did say that Randy Moeller specifically said, hey, if you're going to go out into the high slot and try to block that shot, do it with your body, not your stick there. And the Panthers were behind the 8 ball early there in Montreal. And I mean, we talk about starts of the period. We talked about endings of the period, which we saw the Panthers do multiple times ever since mid-December. I mean, we saw it in the St. Louis game, the Tampa Bay game, the Toronto game just most recently, of how the Panthers haven't really finished periods. I mean, the goal by Oliver Kapanen wasn't necessarily in the last minute of the game in the last minute of the period, for the Panthers, but still those goals that happen towards the end, at least, are just flat out gut punches for this team. And it just brings a little bit of a different vibe whenever you're going into an intermission and thinking that when you're down 2 versus when things are you're even behind 1 or tied, you have a little bit of a better you're in a little bit of a better mood. You're not as desperate to make those plays, to stretch, to try to get those opportunity to squeeze in those passes in the slot. The Panthers were obviously dominant at times in this one, with stretches of play. And we even spoke about it with Jacob Winans, the way you're going to be able to defeat this Montreal Canadiens team is not going to be to outskill them. It's to just play heavy, to get in on the forecheck, which the Cats were able to do for a good amount of time. I mean, from the Kapanen goal all the way until the first goal from Alexandre Texier, they had no shots on goal. It was a 15-minute and 6-second stretch. And the two shots in between are both goals in the back of your net, which is, I wish, this is where I wish that I kind of could have live streamed my reaction of this, because I literally just put my two hands on my face and a double face palm when I saw that, because just the attention to detail has just been poor for this Panthers team. I mean, you look at the second goal. I mean, Jeff Petrie and Donovan Zabrango are at the end boards, but then the fourth line is on, and then nobody's protecting the middle. So I'm not necessarily going to put that on the third pair there. I put that more on the protection of the middle of the ice, where you're going too much more towards the goal line as opposed to that, and that's where Kapanen was able to get to capitalize. But the one that Alexandre Texier scored, Jeff Petrie's trying to go to a check on Nick Suzuki right before he worked it back high and then back to the left flank, and then that centering feed from there gets to Alexandre Texier for an easy tap in. But Sergei Bobrovsky's not quick enough to get from right to left to make that stop. And I mean, again, that wasn't necessarily a strange bounce, but you think about the one of the goals that Montreal scored, which Sergei Bobrovsky stopped with the blocker, and then it's batted in. So those are just the ones that Montreal was able to capitalize, and patient enough that it was below the crossbar, so they're not called for knocking it into the net with a high stick. And for Florida here, I mean, multiple opportunities to get get goals and at least to make it a game, which there was a breakaway opportunity that Matthew Tkachuk had. He tried working it to his backhand, and then not even being checked, it slips out of his own stick as well. So I'm just thinking, and the fact is the Panthers are just overthinking a lot of their opportunities. Right before the Texier scored to make it 3-1, Carter Verhaeghe had a great chance on the short side where the net wasn't closed in on the short side, where AJ Greer kept the puck alive. And then just moments later, that's when the Montreal Canadiens were able to score there. And Uvis Belinskas, I thought that he was doing a great job activating in the play, playing up in that second pair, but only getting one shot on goal in those opportunities. The sticks were in the lanes. The Habs were getting their shot blocks, which they had 20 total on the evening. And I mentioned the mixing and matching when it comes to the PK. It's also on the power play. Evan Rodriguez is playing on power play 1. Gustav Forsling is playing on power play 2. And I'm just thinking, wow, you really know that the Panthers are injured when it's this kind of combination of guys working, and the Panthers were just having a hard time just creating shooting lanes on the night, and not getting enough shots from the point to create those rebounds and get in and win their puck battles to make Sam Montembault's life more difficult, which I really didn't see on the evening. Yeah, the expected goals will say 3-1 in favor of Florida. The shot attempt share will say 44-31 at 5-on-5 for the Panthers, but I really didn't think they did enough. And also on the power play, the two giving up 2 shorthanded chances against, including a 2-on-0. Where Sergei Bobrovsky was able to make a stop. I know the game was a 2-goal deficit at the time, but still, you need to be able to protect the blue line better and win your puck battles a little more there. But the positive is that the second line was great for the Panthers. Sam Bennett getting 2 goals, and it's crazy. The Script Sports broadcast did provide a stat saying that with Sam Bennett's first goal, that was 4 straight goals that the Panthers have scored that went unassisted, which that was just a dead giveaway by Sam Montembault, and then Sam Bennett knocking it in to the open net. But this also, when you go that long of a streak with no goals being assisted for the Panthers, that just goes to show that the Panthers are just not creating enough on the inside and getting those high danger opportunities there. And it really, and Evan Rodriguez spoke about it after the game, where he said, quote, "I don't think we're confident. We're giving the puck away," close quote there. So that's something that the Panthers are kind of struggling with, and just overthinking, as they are an older bunch. They are a team that is trying to just get some points together and get a little bit of momentum there. I mean, it's five of the last 7 that the Panthers have lost. This isn't necessarily their low of the season. I mean, we saw it on December 2nd when they lost against Toronto, and then they were able to go on a little bit of a run there. But really, ever since the Christmas break ended, where you get those 3 comebacks in a span of a week, the Panthers just haven't been able to really get get things back together there. But it's just I know we're not even over at the 2/3 mark of the season, but we are over 50%. And I mean, you're looking at this as maybe the Panthers are, if they don't string a couple of wins together, I mean, they could be running out of time, and no amount of reinforcements coming in, possibly it could possibly get this Panthers team back on track. I mean, it's not over yet. But if they continue to lose these next few games on the road trip, which things will even out by the end of January, the Panthers could really be in danger of missing the entire dance overall. But that I'm talking about this game the day after, which we're recording this Friday morning, just doesn't make me feel better after sleeping on it as well. So that's the worst part about it, as the Panthers had control, but just couldn't find a way to find the back of the net. And that's been a struggle all season. I mean, leading goal scorers out, which, and also with Alexander Barkov being out, he could score 30 if he wanted to. That's also the possibility of that missing in your lineup as well. So it's a lot of scoring that is out of the lineup. And when you can't get saves and you can't grind out these games to at least get it to 3-2 or 2-1 games like we saw on Sunday, you're not going to win a high scoring affair, which the Panthers are not built to do. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we are going to discuss our 3 duds of the game and the moment when we knew the game was lost. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And there's nothing like being near the ice during hockey season. The speed, hits, and atmosphere, it's unmatched. Watching at home is great, but being in the building is a completely different experience. The only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets. Long queues, endless screens, and price changing at checkout. That's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I pulled the Game Time app to check out the upcoming NHL games and was surprised how fast it was to find seats. Seeing NHL tickets available for as low as $25 makes it easy to plan a game night. I really like that fees are included up front, so the price is what you see is the price you pay. Knowing tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee gives real peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDON. NHL for $20 off of your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And I'd like to thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day and making Locked On the #1 sports podcasting network. And if you haven't already, go check out our Everydayer Club. It's an access to an ad-free audio feed for the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. An invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of the show. And you could check out the link in the show notes to learn more. So it's a Panthers loss, which means that we are going to be discussing our 3 duds of the game and the moment when we knew the game was lost. And for me, number 3 dud for the Panthers is going to be Aaron Ekblad. 0 shots on goal. I mentioned that the Panthers power play was having a hard time getting shots from the point, which is very important, and which we probably take Seth Jones a little bit for granted there. And Aaron Ekblad also had 4 giveaways on the night as well. So not necessarily the best night for him when you need him to really contribute offensively. The Panthers were really more about trying to get their Corsi more than they were about just getting shots on net. I know that when you look at the shot total for the Panthers, you see 27-19, which a lot of that came in that stretch of 15 minutes and 6 seconds when they didn't give Montreal a single sniff at the net, which again, a gut punch knowing that both of those shots in that span were goals. So just the fact that it really didn't matter for the Panthers there when they had their opportunities. And to think that the Panthers got a favorable whistle towards the end of the second period, towards the beginning of the third period after they killed off Anton Lundell's high sticking, where Philip Deneau went to the box for high sticking, quote unquote, Anton Lundell, when it was actually a little bit of a friendly fire for them, when it was actually Nico Mikla who got the stick on Lundell, and that was an opportunity for the Panthers to at least get it to 3-2. But just moments after, it was lost. The game not necessarily was lost, but the separation was even more, and it was more of a mountain to climb for the Panthers there. Number 2 dud for me is going to be Carter Verhaeghe. One shot on goal and one real missed opportunity. Like I mentioned, right before the Habs scored the third goal on the short side, I mentioned that AJ Greer kept that play alive, and it honestly sucked the life out of the Panthers there. And then number 1 dud for me, I'm going to go with Jeff Petrie. Lost the foot race to Ivan Demidov right before the goal to Oliver Kapanen. But again, I blame that more on the fourth line not protecting the middle than I do Jeff Petrie. But there was other chances that Jeff Petrie gave up, where I mentioned the trying to check Nick Suzuki and then leaving the net front open for Texier on the net front to tap in, and then the pinch on the second goal by Alexandre Texier, where he pinches and Alexandre Texier starts a little bit of a 2-on-1, leaving Donovan Zabrango on the island, on an island there. He has his stick on the ice. He has his stick perfectly positioned to take away the passing lane on that odd man rush. And then I mentioned multiple times already how it was strange bounces. The puck just goes right back to the stick of Alexandre Texier, and he's able to get it past after Sergei Bobrovsky committed all the way to his right out of the crease, and then it goes to the back of the net, and Donovan Zabrango, understandably, hits the stick on the goalpost after, which I would have done the same thing if I tried blocking a passing lane, and it goes right back to their stick. And to think there was one opportunity that the Panthers had where Bennett was driving towards the right wing, going in, Sam Montembault got the pad down, and then AJ Greer tried going to his backhand to get a second chance opportunity. It doesn't land on his stick. And to think that opportunity for Alexandre Texier, which he's going to be on the French Olympic team, by the way, which Alexandre Texier it's actually a great story about personal redemption and being back in the NHL, because Texier, after he was with the Columbus Blue Jackets, left to go play hockey in Switzerland, came back to the Columbus Blue Jackets, has played on the St. Louis Blues, played in 3 playoff games, and then now has revived his NHL career. So that's honestly a great moment for Texier there, and also the fact that he's going to be part of the Olympics there for France. But still, that is a frustrating moment for a guy like Donovan Zabrango there, which you blame that. He won't blame his teammate for that. He's not going to put him on the he's not going to put him under the bus there, but I will do it for him as I will put that more on Jeff Petrie more than I would on Donovan Zabrango for even allowing that rush to begin with for the Panthers. But the moment where we knew the game was lost, I'm stuck between the first Texier goal where it made it 3-1, and then the fact that the Panthers were unable to capitalize early in the third period when Anton Lundell, quote unquote, drew the high stick on Philip Deneau in the third period, because the Panthers were really starting to buzz. They continued to do so in the third period, and the fact is the puck was more often on the end of the Montreal Canadiens, and the fact that they were able to capitalize. Now I don't have the stat in front of me at this moment in time, but the road power play for the Panthers is still pretty poor compared to what we've seen. And the fact that is that with the Panthers being very road heavy in this second half of the season, that is really gonna be a part of the Panthers game where you're gonna need to see some production. As I was mentioned, putting out that statement here on the podcast, I actually just looked up and I did the splits between home and road for the power play. The Panthers are second to last in the NHL in road power play percentage at 11.7. The only team that's worse is the Toronto Maple Leafs there. So that's how poor the Panthers power play has been away from Sunrise. So got to find a way. But also for the Panthers, you got to find a way to get healthy as well. I mean, Seth Jones is week to week. Brad Marchand, he's day to day, which the Panthers said that he's not ruled out necessarily for the Ottawa game. So that's at least a positive for the Panthers. But again, the multiple teams, the teams that were ahead of them to begin the night on Thursday, won. Buffalo won, Pittsburgh won against the New Jersey Devils, and two teams have jumped you. It's from last night. Boston jumped the Panthers after beating the Calgary Flames, and then the Toronto Maple Leafs as well have jumped the Florida Panthers. So, you know, the time is now to make something happen. And this is a division-heavy road trip, and you have two teams in these next two games who are chasing. I mean, everyone's chasing. I mean, that's not a statement that's not the first time you're hearing this statement here on the show. But you know, every game just becomes more important with these 4 point swings here, and that you could look to the road power play as a main reason for the Panthers' inability to get second chances and to at least protect the blue lines and the half walls to at least keep the pucks in the zone, and also allow the PK for the other team to at least get out of position, fight more for the pucks in the on the end boards. And if you're winning those chances at the end boards, you have an opportunity to get a quick setup for a guy coming off puck into the low slot / bumper area. So, and the Panthers are just not doing it to the production that we are used to for the Panthers. At least the PK for the Panthers is actually in a great place. I mentioned the different guys of playing elevated minutes for the Cats. That's at least a good sign for the Panthers and their ability to at least take the middle of the ice away while they are shorthanded there for them. But it's 7 straight to the Habs. They've dominated now the series ever since February 29th, 2024. That was when the Panthers won in a shootout, by the way. But ever since that, the Panthers just haven't been able to really find a way. And the Panthers in the stretch, the Script Sports broadcast actually brought out the stat before the game. The Panthers are 2-27 on the power play against Montreal. Make that now 2 for 20, 10%. And the Panthers road power play, like I mentioned, over 11. And if you do quick math of their power play percentage against Montreal, it's at 10 now in these last 7 games that the Panthers have faced Montreal. So Panthers are not necessarily in trouble, but they're close to being in trouble and really in danger of missing the dance. But now the Panthers have to set their sights on the Ottawa Senators on Saturday night, who will be returning home after a road trip. So we will discuss that more next year on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And the wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost packs waiting for them inside the app. Each day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day, and you see what boost you want to apply. The boost allows you to lean in on game day instincts, whether you're backing momentum, defense, quarterback play, or coaching. Every play feels bigger, and the boost makes your bet feel that way too. You make your picks, then apply the profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Third and final segment here on this Friday, January 9th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday. The Panthers are coming off a 6-2 loss against the Montreal Canadiens. And, Paul Maurice after the game did speak about how he really liked how they played, that they are fighting for their lives, and the fact that they still had a good amount of possession in their offensive zone. He believes that it will help them along the way. And I mean, it could. I mean, again, you have to make the playoffs in order to at least give yourself a chance. And you know what? Maybe these line combinations that Paul Maurice is putting together. I mean, this is not the first time that AJ Greer has played in the top six out of necessity because of the injuries. But I mean, it could possibly be a line that you could go back to later on if need be, if you need a break glass in case of emergency, in case more injuries happen for the Panthers, because there's no guarantee that this lineup will be intact come mid-April if the Panthers do in fact make it. So maybe that is really truly a positive. And honestly, credit to Paul Maurice. He's very positive compared to sometimes myself when it comes to the play of the Panthers and a lot of the fan base, because sometimes we live a lot of the results game by game, while he likes to look at big picture. And honestly, again, it goes back to not criticizing the players for having to lift the load versus what they are used to. But the Panthers set their sights on the Ottawa Senators on Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, 7 p.m. at the Canadian Tire Center, which I mentioned earlier. Brad Marchand not ruled out of the game. And it's already been a full week of practice for Matthew Tkachuk, and just shed the non-contact sweater earlier this week. And this feels like the day. It feels like the day that Matthew Tkachuk could be back and facing against his brother in a possible Tkachuk Bowl. And at the end of this month, the home road splits for the Panthers, for the most part, will be evened out. So this is one of those games for the Panthers to really get things right. I mean, they blew out the Senators early on in the season, on the third game of the season, by a final score of 6-2. There, Linus Ullmark was still with the team at the time, which now there's a lot of drama in Ottawa based on an anonymous social media post, which I'm not going to get into the details of it. It's not worth even putting that out there on the air, but you guys can look it up yourself, because I don't want to add to the unnecessary drama of just a fan tweet. But the Ottawa Senators did put out a statement about not being the reason why Linus Ullmark is away from the team. And just this is where you just gotta leave players alone and just let them be away, and hopefully that they are in a better headspace before they get back onto the ice. So just a reminder, these are human beings too. So let's just not try to mess with their lives outside the ice, please. That's all I ask. But again, the Senators are coming off an 8-1 loss against Colorado at the end of their road trip, and Levi Merilainen started both games of a back-to-back for the Sens there. So their goaltending is very thin. As of right now, Levi Merilainen did make a start against the Florida Panthers just a few years ago in 2023, late April, where the Panthers did even win by a final score of 7-2. So this is not the first time that the Panthers have seen Levi Merilainen, 23 years old, third round pick in the 2020 draft, is still waivers exempt. So he's been playing a while in Belleville, getting some development there, but called up on an emergency basis made the team out of training camp after battling for so long. And Matt Sogard, the only appearance that he's had this season was in relief on Thursday night in Colorado. So that's really the only time that we've seen Matt Sogard in the crease for the Ottawa Senators. So I expect Levi Merilainen to be the starter there for the Sens. And just like the Panthers, the Sens are giving up a lot of goals against as well. So it hasn't necessarily been a great defensive team. So if you're looking at this game for the Panthers and Senators and you're a betting person, whether and we obviously on the Locked On Podcast Network, we recommend FanDuel. Go for the over in this one, which that's what I would be going if I were a betting man. But again, for this Panthers team, it's an opportunity to get some momentum here for the Panthers before they get to Buffalo on Monday night, which the Sabres have won 11 of their last 12. And that's a team that you're chasing. Currently the Senators are behind the Panthers, but you want to create more of that separation and get a little bit closer. And although the Panthers, I would still say, control their destiny, because a lot of the teams that are ahead of them, they play again. The Leafs twice, the Bruins 2 more times, the Sabres 3 more times. So and Pittsburgh, one of the other teams that the Panthers are behind, they'll play them twice on a back-to-back in the same place in April. So for that team, it's a little bit of work to do right before you pass them, before you actually get your head-to-head opportunities there. But the return of Brady Tkachuk for Ottawa just goes to show that just because you have a superstar player coming back, which Brady Tkachuk had a procedure on his hand, and he came back on November 28th. But since then, the Senators are 8-11-1 since his return. And again, there are 2 other examples of teams that have had superstar players come back and their record hasn't necessarily been great. Jack Hughes with the New Jersey Devils, Connor Hellebuck with the Winnipeg Jets. With right now, the Jets are the worst record in the NHL. They're going to go from President's Trophy to dead last in the NHL. So we haven't seen that in a 32-team league ever. It's happened in a 16-team league. It actually happened with the New York Rangers, but we have not seen that in this era of the NHL. But going back to the Sens, during that stretch since Brady's return on November 28th, with the 8-11-1 record, 77.4 PK percentage and 3.55 goals against per game. In comparison, for the Panthers, they're at 3.40 goals against since November 28th. And for the Panthers, think about in even before that stretch for them, they had 15 shots on goal against Vancouver, and they gave up 5. And then you see a performance just a few weeks later where 15 shots on goal against the Dallas Stars, and you give up literally nothing of quality in the middle of the ice. And then on Thursday night, you see 19, and then you see the Montreal Canadiens knock 6 on you, which again, including the empty net breakaway that Carter Verhaeghe slashed Juraj Slafkovsky on the breakaway, which you're automatically awarded a goal. But you see that and you're just like, man, the final score made it worse than the actual gameplay. But still, when you look at the fact that you see less than 20 shots on goal, you feel like you should win. But at the same time, in this era of the NHL, the players are finding better ways to get those high danger opportunities, and there's a lot more skill now than ever. And it's not just shooting the puck for the sake of shooting it. They are actually very patient when it comes to their scoring opportunities, which congrats to the Habs and for them as they've turned around it in their rebuild. The Ottawa Senators had made the playoffs last year, could have made it to a Game 7 against the Leafs, but progression isn't linear for either team, any team. And the Ottawa Senators are just trying to find their way back. Still have a lot of skill in their lineup. Timmy Stützle, their top center. Jake Sanderson, who's going to be part of the Olympic team for Team USA, who made a heck of an impression last year in the Four Nations. So you got to hopefully find a way to at least get those second chance opportunities that you didn't against the Habs. So we'll see how the Panthers do on Saturday night in a possible Tkachuk Bowl. possibly also with Brad Marchand returning to the lineup, and maybe we'll see a little bit of sign of a healthier Panthers team, and that could possibly elevate their spirits and also result in wins, and especially 2 points in regulation, hopefully. But that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. We'll be back on Monday to break down the game against the Ottawa Senators and then preview Monday night's game in Buffalo. Thank you guys, as always, for listening. And in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.